Because Hagrid is just like your drunk uncle, this is MuggleCast episode 220 for February the 6th, 2011.
This week's episode of MuggleCast is brought to you by Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks with more than 75,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature, including fiction, nonfiction, and periodicals. For a free audiobook of your choice, go to audiblepodcast.com/MuggleCast. Welcome to MuggleCast episode 220. Micah, Eric, and I here this week we have some big news, whether it's Harry Potter news or news about what we are doing this summer. We have both things to talk about this week, so it's a very exciting episode, I have to say.
Not to mention Super Bowl this weekend.
Super Bowl Sunday! But that has nothing to do with Harry Potter, so we won't even go into it, really. Yeah. Anyway, I'm Andrew Sims.
I'm Eric Skull.
And I'm Micah Tannenbaum.
What's in the news this week, Micah? We'll get to our announcement about the summer in just a couple minutes.
Well, on February the 1st, I can't remember what day that was. I think it was Tuesday.
It was the day of the great Chicago blizzard.
Oh, that's right. Are you still digging out over there? How you doing?
Yeah, a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah, New York, we didn't get as much. We got a lot of rain.
Huh.
So, but we got plenty of snow before that. Andrew, how's the snow out west?
Oh, it's great. I have a tan.
Anyway, back on Tuesday, Warner Brothers gave an official announcement for the release date of the Deathly Hallows Part 1 DVD and Blu-ray, as well as what features are going to be contained on both the DVD and the Blu-ray editions. So, April the 15th, just a couple months from now, we will have all of this great stuff to talk about, but we can do a little bit of previewing, I think, right? Looking at the features and the deleted scenes that are going to be on the DVD and the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
So
I think the most exciting thing is the Part 2 preview, which is supposed to have it's supposed to be one of the opening scenes from the film. So it's not going to be from the battle, but maybe I'm guessing it'll be the Gringotts action.
Do you think? Maybe it'll be planning Gringotts in Shell Cottage, maybe with Ollivander. Harry does make a pretty big decision to go, between Hallows and Horcruxes at around the time at Shell Cottage.
True. That's a good point. I just thought maybe they would want to tease something more action-packed. And then some other sneak peeks that are on here. We get to see how Dan Radcliffe recreated the personalities of different characters that transform into Harry's in the hilarious Privet Drive scene. And a couple of goofy things. I don't know, lately with these DVDs, they've been adding a lot of goofy content.
now, is this on the DVD or is this on the Blu-ray?
Yeah, that's the thing. You have to buy the 3-disc Blu-ray combo pack, which comes with a DVD.
Yeah.
And a Blu-ray and a digital copy.
That's unnecessary. I'm just going to say that. There's at least one disc you don't need in that set, and maybe two.
The other cool thing I thought, and maybe this is just adding things in for the sake of having them, is you get a behind-the-scenes look at what went into the grand opening for the Wizarding World of Harry Potter theme park down in Orlando when a lot of the cast and crew were down for that great event. So I feel like, though, that's just an addition for the sake of trying to not include other important content. What do you guys think?
Well,
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, they've never had, though, important content. Things like outtakes don't exist on these, and
which is a shame.
You have to admit,
didn't they used to?
You always hear about Rupert playing pranks and, things like whoopee cushions, which probably be funny to watch once and then, not as much later.
They'll save that for the Ultimate Editions, because when they do those documentaries, you always see that extra B-roll of the actors goofing around on set.
Yeah.
So
So I think about it. 8 films, all 2.5 hours long, months and months of filming. There's gotta be stuff that hit film, funny
absolutely.
Outtakes, even if it's just messing up lines.
Well, let's run through these deleted scenes really quick, and get some, reaction. First one up is the Burrows shed. Ron discusses radios with Mr. Weasley. You can kind of understand why that would have been cut from the film.
But also why it would be important, because obviously he it's not developed in the film, but, he does rely on the radio.
The next two are important. They were in the book. Harry and Aunt Petunia as they leave, and Harry and Dudley shaking hands.
I don't get this. Because neither of these two scenes that take place in the Dursley house are the version of, or appear to be the version of the Dursleys departing that I saw in the preview of Deathly Hallows.
I don't know.
And what was the preview? Just to remind people.
It's not in the movie, but there's this line where Dudley says, "I don't understand why the boy's not coming with us," or why is he not coming? And Vernon says to him, because he doesn't want to. And it's obviously a lie, but so that, it's uneasy. It's Vernon is troubled when he says that.
So there was no shaking hands in that scene.
No shaking hands, and it's not Aunt Petunia. When they drive away, Aunt Petunia, I think, looks out the window. But there's no dialogue between them that I saw. But also, not even that line is in the actual movie, so I'm wondering where that line went. Because I thought it was good.
Also, these other scenes, the Granger house, Death Eaters search deserted home.
That would bring such value, to Hermione hiding her family. But I can see exactly why it's not needed, because you already understand that you've already seen Hermione wipe her parents' memories, so it almost doesn't even matter if they actually search the house.
And the final 4 scenes: Ministry of Magic lifts. Harry tells Arthur he's being tracked.
That'd be fun.
In the tent, the trio discusses destroying the locket, a rabbit chase in the forest, and finally, a montage of Ron and Hermione skimming stones. So most of these things aren't too, you can understand at this point why they cut them out. Usually they blame it on the pacing of the film. They didn't want to slow it down.
Well, actually, the last two were 2 scenes that David Yates mentioned when you interviewed him on the red carpet in New York City. He pointed those 2 out, as well as the scene with Aunt Petunia. So,
because you always asked him you asked him specifically that, didn't you? What scenes will be on the deleted and the DVD? You asked him that question, right?
Yeah, and he said these things. I think I can't.
Rabbit chase in the forest?
Who cares? Anyway, let's move on. What else is going on in the news?
Well, we briefly mentioned the Wizarding World theme park earlier, and there's been a couple of rumors that have surfaced of late. Andrew, you reported on it just the other day that we could see an expansion as early as 2013, with the possibility of Diagon Alley and Gringotts being added to the theme park, particularly in that Lost Continent area that currently houses Jurassic Park.
Right. So we've been making a few news posts about an expansion because it's really exciting, and it's very clear. First of all, we know that Universal is obligated to update the park in some fashion every couple of years. But, there's all this other information that keeps surfacing as well. And Screamscape website, or a theme park site called Screamscape, reported most of these rumors that we shared most recently. And yeah, I think, Diagon Alley seems to make the most sense when thinking about expanding, because that is another public wizarding area that would just work really well. It's an outdoor area, so it would fit naturally in the park.
Although,
and it would take over the Lost Continent, which is really lame.
You don't like the Lost Continent, Andrew.
No, it's horrible. The only good thing there is Mythos, the restaurant. But there's all that room that they could be using for the Wizarding World. Well, my only concern is the Wizarding World, the entrance right now would no longer be the entrance. So I that would be kind of weird.
Yeah.
Having like 2 areas that feel like entrances.
There already are 2 entrances to the park, though.
Yeah, but the main one where the Hogwarts Express is.
Right, but that's actually not the main one. The main one is over the bridge that takes you under Hogwarts. according to everybody I spoke to, because when in times of trouble, they would close what I would consider to be the main entrance by the Hogwarts Express, and that leads in from the Lost Continent, and the large bridge that the line was forming took you in between Hogwarts and Hogsmeade, right near Jurassic Park. Through that bridge. That seems to be what they were calling the main entrance, even though the one by the Hogwarts Express...
I don't think that's the main entrance, because, all the publicity photos, when the grand opening day, that was all by the Hogwarts Express. But nonetheless, the rumor that seems to be floating around right now is a Gringotts ride. And I sort of put two and two together. There was an article from the Orlando Sentinel that said... Warner Brothers' contract with Universal states they must, quote, incorporate elements from the final Potter films. So I was thinking, well, there is a Gringotts scene in part 2, or there is a Diagon Alley scene in part 2 when they go to Gringotts. And there's that action-packed sort of, ride and the dragon breaking in. So I thought that would be a perfect ride that or a perfect scene they could base the ride on. Do you guys agree that would be cool?
They could just plant a bunch of trees and call it the English countryside ride, and people can camp out.
And everybody gets to run through the forest.
That would be a little boring, I think. But how would they mold that? Would it be similar to the Forbidden Journey ride, or would it be something along the lines of what they have in other parts of Universal? Maybe, how King Kong and Jaws and those rides used to be, where it's more of you kind of just going through and you see things around you? Would it be a roller coaster? What do you guys think? They already have 2 roller coasters.
They do have 2 roller coasters. My preference is for a wild mouse type roller coaster where you can go over the edges, but be in mine carts underneath Gringotts. So it would be indoors again. But they've had a lot of success with those kinds of things, like the Mummy ride in Universal as well. They seem to be really good at building those, and that type of ride is kind of, I want to say it's why you go to Universal, for those types of rides where you're sitting and watching more so than you are being thrown around. The Dueling Dragons now is a violent ride, and so you get your fix for a roller coaster there, but the other rides are just kind of themed, and you're watching. You're a spectator almost to the movie.
Right.
Yeah, and that kind of, there could be sharp turns, there could be sudden drops, I think, for that sort of minecart ride. I was sort of thinking, in Disneyland and Disney World, they have the Big Thunder Mountain, which is sort of like a train style, and, it's got drops and turns, and it moves pretty fast. I think it could be something like that. And all the while, you're sort of watching the dragon maybe chase you, or you're trying to get to the right vault or something. I don't know. There's a lot of potential there, I think.
I have to say,
especially with the Horcrux, maybe they can tie that in, destruction of the Horcrux, into that particular ride, because all the fire that takes place in the vault, and they have trouble trying to get out. So be interesting.
So this is the rumor right now currently is 2013, which I actually think is kind of late. I would have thought they would try to open it up in the beginning of 2012 or something, but maybe that's just too soon.
Okay, my initial reaction when I read these separate news posts was the last thing that theme park needs is more shops. More places to sit around and spend your money. They need rides. Two of the 3 rides in that park already existed prior to building the Wizarding World. We let it slide because the Wizarding World is a great place, but realistically, they need to build more rides. They need to build more rides that are specific to that park, because they're getting off easy. Think of all the money they're raking.
Do you know what Mr. Universal would say if he heard you say that right now, that they don't need more shops, Mr. Universal?
Yeah, what?
He'd say this.
It's all about money, Eric.
It's all about money. And as we've reported before, they have made so much money off the Harry Potter merchandise. They are just, using money as toilet paper at this point.
That's because instead of rides, they have these themed merchandise. And don't get me wrong.
But is it a problem?
Yes. Don't get me wrong. It's beautiful. But, people are still waiting in line 3 hours to go to Gringotts and get chosen for a wand, or go to Ollivanders and get chosen for a wand. But it's not the point.
I was going to ask that, Eric, though. Do you think Ollivander has squatting rights in Diagon Alley? Can he move back?
I think he can open up 2 shops.
They should add a second one. They need to, yeah.
Yeah.
let's move along. Again, I am really excited for the next expansion. We know for sure there will be an expansion, but the big questions are what it will be and when it will be, and that's why we're reporting whatever we can find, because we're so excited. And Mr. Universal Eric is looking to add more shops.
He's rolling in the dough. Anyway.
He's laughing at you right now. Before we move on, first we'd like to tell you about this week's sponsor. Audible.com, the internet's leading provider of audiobooks with more than 75,000 downloadable titles across all types of literature and featuring audio versions of many New York Times bestsellers. For listeners of MuggleCast, Audible is offering a free audiobook to give you a chance to try out their awesome service. One audiobook to consider is Orson Scott Card's classic, Ender's Game. Check out the special 20th anniversary edition, which is digitally remastered with a full cast production. So to purchase that or any other audiobook of your choice for free, go to audiblepodcast.com/MuggleCast. That's audiblepodcast.com/MuggleCast.
The Harry Potter franchise is set to receive an honorary BAFTA. It was announced on Thursday for its outstanding British contribution to cinema at this year's awards. Now, J.K. Rowling and producer David Heyman will be there to accept this award. Thoughts? I mean, is this something that potentially the Oscars would follow suit on, or do you don't think that that's even going to be possible?
Micah, what's an honorary BAFTA? Is that any more important than a regular BAFTA? Because it would have to be.
Well, it's for the reason the Oscars wouldn't do this sort of thing is because, well, they could, but the BAFTA, this honorary BAFTA, is for quote highlighting the expertise within the British craft and technical industry. So it's the fact that the Harry Potter film franchise is a British production that they're getting this honorary award at the BAFTAs.
And it is. It was a wise choice, in my opinion, because, you know, to film the film in Britain and not on some stage in America, where obviously Warner Brothers pays for it. But, you know, it's so BAFTAs are great. I don't think it says anything about Oscars, though, but I think it's really important that the films do receive this award.
And it's cool that J.K. Rowling is going to be accepting.
Well, it's not like she had was writing a book or something, was busy doing something else.
Easy.
Well, if you read her Twitter, she is.
She's, pen and paper?
I would love to accept the BAFTA, but pen and paper are my priority at the moment.
Well, what's interesting, though, is there was an article, I think earlier this week, that featured Rupert Grint and Richard Griffiths talking about the lack of Oscar, appreciation that the Harry Potter series has gotten.
That Rupert Grint and Richard Griffiths.
Well, maybe they just interviewed both of them. They were at a premiere or something like that. But, it's interesting now to sort of hear the actors' reaction to not getting a whole lot of recognition when it comes to the Oscars. I know we've had this conversation before, but, with Deathly Hallows Part 2 coming out in July, will there be that push from Warner Brothers to nominate the final part of the series? Do you guys think?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And maybe the films are too British, all British actors, to ever receive an American award. But then that's incorrect, because movies like The King's Speech, in fact, America has an obsession with British actors in American films. So, everything Hugh Jackman, or I'm not even going to continue, but a lot of Australians too. Yeah.
All right. Well, final piece of news. Dear Mr. Potter, this is something that was started by 16-year-old Lily Zalan, and it's a nonprofit book featuring stories, letters, and photos from Harry Potter fans around the world telling how the series has impacted and inspired them. And the book, which is going to be available for purchase this summer, is being sold 100% nonprofit to benefit youth literacy through the Harry Potter Alliance. And I understand, Eric, both you and Andrew have written letters, and they will both appear in the printed version of this book.
It's a really cool idea, this Dear Mr. Potter project. I think this is sort of almost long overdue, this kind of collection, and I cannot wait to read it. They're also, if you go to dearmrpotter.org, they're posting a lot of their letters now.
Well, it started as a weblog, didn't it? I mean, it started that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's on Tumblr, so it's technically still is a blog.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of these letters won't be printed in the book, but and some of them will. So you can go there now and just read through them. You'll get a nice look at what you can expect in the book.
Yeah. It's really great stuff.
DearMrPotter.org, all one word.
And it's cool that this was all started by a 16-year-old. To me, that's
maybe it was
really
J.K.
impressive.
Rowling's daughter. Isn't she around that age now?
Could be. Her first name was Lily, so I mean, you gotta wonder. Maybe it's her pen name. Never know. All right, Andrew, we have a big summer announcement here, and I'm going to throw it to you to talk about MuggleCon 2011.
Yes, we are announcing MuggleCast Con. No, so for the summer, we obviously want to be a part of something big. It's the final Harry Potter film. Everybody's going to be so excited leading up to the launch of the film, and a lot of fans want to be together. And as people know, we've been to many Harry Potter conferences in the past, and many of you listeners have showed up to them, and we've done live podcasts at them, we've done panels, meet and greets, you name it. And so this year, we are going to be at LeakyCon 2011. Our friends at the LeakyCauldron.org are organizing this event. It's going to be in Orlando, Florida, at the same hotel that Infinitus was at last year. It's going to be July 13th to the 17th. Obviously, it's right on the Universal property, which is where the Wizarding World of Harry Potter is. So not only do you get to go to a Harry Potter fan conference, you also get to go to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter theme park. So we're going to be there. We're going to be doing at least one live podcast. We're going to be doing the plans right now, or the idea right now, is to do a Leaky Mug with our friends from Pottercast. To either before, I don't know. The plans are kind of early right now, but the news is that we will be going to LeakyCon. We highly recommend going to LeakyCon.com. Check it out. You really should consider going to this. If you've ever been to a fan symposium before, you know how much fun these are. You're surrounded by tons of Harry Potter fans. Everybody's just really friendly. It's a great atmosphere, and everyone always has so much fun. I'm going to run through some of the details about LeakyCon right now. Registration is open right now through February 28th. It's $200. You have to be 13 to go, but 18 to go without a chaperone. And currently they have a white pass, which allows parents to go as chaperones, but it's at no cost to them. So they can still, since some people need a chaperone, they can still go, but the parents don't have to pay as long as they have the white pass. Special guests so far, us, Star Kid, who we talked about on a recent episode of MuggleCast. They're going to be doing a special performance as well as a Q&A. The Potter Puppet Pals will also be attending. There will be Lit Day. It's a big like a conference within a conference. It's going to be a bunch of speakers talking about literature, of course, and there's going to be a keynote during Lit Day by Arthur Levine, the editor at Scholastic. He's been a big player in the Harry Potter books, so it's going to be very cool to hear from him. There's also going to be 12 Wizard Rock bands over 2 shows, including Harry and the Potters and Draco and the Malfoys. There's going to be the premiere of Finding Hogwarts, which is a documentary put together actually by a couple friends of ours. There's also going to be a Final Battle performance. It was a musical that premiered at Infinitus last year. They're doing it again. Plus, those people are putting on another new musical. And there's a bunch of other things as well. Quidditch, arts and crafts, meetups, tons of programming about Harry Potter, and more soon to be announced. So obviously, a lot of details there. Just go to LeakyCon.com. You'll find all the information you need. As it is still pretty early, a lot of the plans aren't set in stone yet, but from what they've told us they're planning, it is really going to be an amazing event. You will not want to miss this one.
Well, there was one thing that you left out, Andrew, I think. There's going to be a movie, right?
Yes, well,
right around that time.
The LeakyCon is happening over the release of Part 2. So there's going to be a big group trip to the movie theater at midnight to see the film.
IMAX.
And in IMAX at the beautiful Universal theaters. Did you guys see a movie there? I saw Toy Story 3 in their downtown area.
We saw Inception at midnight because Inception came out during Infinitus. Funny story is that the whole group I was with all fell asleep during it. Except for me. I stayed up.
Well, I saw Toy Story at these movie theaters. It is honestly one of the most gorgeous screens I've ever seen a film on. They're huge and it must be a digital projection. It's just beautiful. So you're going to be seeing part 2 with some of the biggest Harry Potter fans as well, which is cool in and of itself. Because when you're watching with all these hardcore Harry Potter fans, you're going to be laughing, crying at, some of the strongest emotional moments in the film.
Possibly cursing,
depending on how it was adapted. And also, finally, I know this is a lot of details, but this just shows you how big LeakyCon is. They're going to be planning a private park event. It's not going to be included in registration, but they will be offering a ticket that allows you into the park earlier in the day, plus access to the private park event. And that's going to be an after-hours event where only attendees of LeakyCon will be able to go in to the Wizarding World and just spend time with each other. And that'll be announced. The details about that will be announced in the coming months. So again, LeakyCon.com, July 13th to the 17th in Orlando, Florida, taking place at the Royal Pacific Resort right on Universal property. The room block is sold out. They're sold out of the LeakyCon block of rooms, but they have opened up another block of rooms at the Crowne Plaza. So just visit LeakyCon.com again for all the information. And when you do go to register, use referral code MUGGLE. We're all familiar with that code over the years. Use MUGGLE, MUGGLE when you go to register. We'll have more details.
Save
about
10% on your .com domain. Oops, wrong one.
We'll have more details about what we'll be doing there in the coming months. But it's going to be a huge, awesome, really fun event. I can't wait.
Cool.
So we'll be talking about that leading up. Oh, sorry. One other thing I want to mention. There's going to be a ball. And the dance is always, I think, the highlight of the conference for me. Because everybody's just together in one giant room. And they're playing, the LeakyCon has some really cool events planned for the ball. As well as the opening and closing festivities.
Cool.
So, go. If you guys are looking for something to do, go to LeakyCon. This is going to be really, really special. I promise you will have the time of your life. LeakyCon.com, referral code MUGGLE. Okay, now that I'm out of breath, I get to do the first chapter here, or chapter by chapter this week.
This, Andrew?
Yeah, I shouldn't have done this. We're doing chapters 24, 25, and 26 of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. The first chapter is Rita Skeeter's Scoop. So the chapter opens with Harry struggling to find out what the clue is that the egg is holding, because the second task is coming up and he still has no idea what he can expect. He's reluctant to take Cedric's advice because he finds it to be silly. But is that kind of like immature of Harry, I feel? Like he has no idea where to be looking for clues, yet he finds Cedric's clue to be so stupid.
Well, why would Cedric lie to him? I mean, Cedric got this clue, and he gave it to Harry through Moody, we find out later, but Harry has helped him with the first task. It would make sense that Cedric would, in turn, help Harry out with this task. And I think, again, we talked about this, was it the last show or 2 shows ago? I think it has a lot to do with Cho Chang, and his feelings towards Cedric are kind of maybe a little bit bitter, yeah, compared to where they were right around the first task. So I think that plays into it.
Yeah, he has no reason not to trust Cedric, but, he kind of invents reasons. And in the meantime, so eventually he does take Cedric's advice, but in the meantime, these other events of this chapter are going on. So it's kind of like, Harry hasn't forgotten about the egg, but he has put it on the back burner, as it were. Which is kind of funny, because you cook eggs on a burner.
So shortly after that, at Care of Magical Creatures, Harry learns that Hagrid won't be teaching the lesson. He asks Grubbly Plank what the deal is with Hagrid, but she won't say. But they end up learning that Hagrid is embarrassed by the article written by Rita Skeeter, who paints Hagrid in a very bad light. And the full article is in the book, and it's, pretty lengthy write-up. And it was just cruel what Rita did. And even though later in this chapter we see Dumbledore really trying to console Hagrid, because he knows Hagrid's really upset that all this information got out. Do you think Dumbledore was somewhat disappointed by the fact that Hagrid did talk to Rita Skeeter and the fact that, this information did get out?
If Dumbledore were a true friend, he would squash Rita Skeeter like a bug.
Well, and we hear he banned her from the school, but shouldn't she have been banned earlier? This seems like kind of late.
She still hangs out in the school.
I think, though, that the Hagrid has a very unassuming personality, so, he doesn't, just like Dumbledore, he doesn't see the negative side of people, and he does have that trustworthy quality to him. So when he was talking to Rita, he probably didn't think anything of it. But that's also surprising to me, too, because clearly she's been around for a long time, and she's been writing these kind of articles, so to think that, she would go to Hagrid and write an article that would be in a positive light, is pretty dense on the part of Hagrid to think that way. So I would imagine that Dumbledore is a bit disappointed, but as you said, why wasn't she kicked out previously? Clearly she's not the only reporter that works for the Daily Prophet, or the only paper that's around. You could think that they could get a more seasoned, qualified person to write and cover this tournament. Don't they have a sports writer or something out there?
Right, sports writer. But yeah, no, like you would think like a Quidditch writer for the paper could go and cover the Triwizard.
Exactly.
So after this lesson, getting back into the plot here, Parvati says she enjoyed the class because she actually got to learn about a magical creature. They had learned about a unicorn that day, and that kind of upsets Harry and Ron because they miss Hagrid, and they're upset that people are enjoying Hagrid not being present. But I have to say, even I had this sort of feeling when I was a kid in school sometimes. You really like a teacher, but then you don't like how maybe you're never on task with anything. Yeah. You're always sort of like, it's just a mess. The teaching style's a mess.
Yeah, I've had those teachers too where, it's like, you like the teacher, but what do you really learn? Except to have fun. It's kind of like that.
Well, they also have a strong personal tie to Hagrid, which, that's a completely different element to add into it.
So a week goes by and they don't see Hagrid at all. And Harry goes to Hogsmeade in hopes that he'll run into him. But instead, he runs into Mr. Bagman, who reveals Barty Crouch has gone missing. And the excuse is Percy says that he's ill. But then Bagman says he's taken a liking to Harry, and as such, he'd like to help point him in the right direction for the next task. Harry doesn't take the offer, and he's not sure why he says no. But this is just another piece of evidence we see in the ongoing list of reasons why the Triwizard Tournament is really corrupt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a bunch of cheating and rule breaking.
Everybody wants to help Harry.
Yeah, and I don't think that Harry trusts Bagman's character too much.
Well, he sees what he says. What he does to the Weasleys. He still owes them money.
Right, but does Harry know that at this point?
I don't think so. But isn't Harry thinking, if I was Harry, I'd be worried that since I turned down the offer for advice, he'd be going to somebody else. I mean, Bagman does say he's taken a liking to Harry, but that would just worry me that the other people are getting help. So I think you gotta play dirty to stay in the game here. Yeah. Because if everybody's cheating, you have to cheat too.
But what I mean in terms of trusting his character, though, is I think he's a bit suspicious of why Bagman is coming to him saying that he's willing to offer his help.
I think Harry just has trouble first accepting that somebody takes a liking specifically to him, and two, he doesn't want to associate with those kinds of people, who treat him special. He never wanted to be treated special. He just wants to be just Harry.
No, yeah, that's a good point. And we see that more and more as the books go on, of course. So, moving along, while talking over what just happened with Ron and Hermione, Rita Skeeter enters the Three Broomsticks, and we hear her trying to put together a story about Bagman based on what she just saw with him talking to the goblins. And So Harry gets really fed up about this, and Harry calls her out for writing the poor article on Hagrid. And Rita, Hermione, and Harry end up throwing insults back and forth at each other. Rita, calling Hermione a little girl and so forth.
Ooh.
And I gotta say, now that the Wizarding World theme park does exist, I was totally picturing this happening in the actual Wizarding World Three Broomsticks.
Like people, somebody portraying Hermione and somebody portraying Rita.
Yeah. And then I started thinking, people should reenact these scenes in the Wizarding World Park. That'd be so cool.
That would be cool.
So they leave Hogsmeade and head back to Hagrid's hut. And while pounding on the door, it finally opens, but it's Dumbledore who answers. And it turns out Dumbledore was there to console Hagrid, which sort of answers our question earlier. I mean, if Dumbledore was that upset about this article, I don't think he would have been spending so much time with Hagrid. Cause we see that Dumbledore is sort of trying to talk him out of his misery. And the trio try to help as well. And Hagrid does eventually come around when he hears that Harry is making good progress on the egg clue, even though that's a complete lie. But this does make Harry realize, okay, it's time to go and take up Cedric's offer.
I think it's more that Dumbledore is angry with Hagrid's reaction to the article than he is with the fact that the article was even published. Hagrid kind of buries his head in the sand and doesn't want to teach class. And so, Dumbledore is always there, I think, to pick people up. He talks about all the letters that have been sent in support of Hagrid. But I wanted to ask, why does Harry feel so guilty, though, about lying to Hagrid about the egg, but not necessarily when he's talking to Ron or Hermione?
He knows Hagrid's more of a parental figure, if you can imagine that. But it's basically, he doesn't want to let an adult down who trusts in him. His friends are his peers. They share a lot of the same issues. But Hagrid, who is in a weakened state, the only way Harry cheers him up is by lying to him. That can't feel good. I mean, I think by him taking Cedric's advice, by him deciding to take Cedric's advice, he realizes that this is, there's so much evil in the world right now. You just got to take the advice from someone who seemed to be, innocently given. He realizes that Cedric probably doesn't have it in for him, but people like Rita, are the people in this world who do have it out for people.
All right, well, let's move on now to chapter 25.
Right.
And I have to say, on a behind-the-scenes note, Eric is notorious for writing a long list of notes, but for this chapter, he wrote the shortest list of notes we have ever seen him produce, which does not mean he's getting lazy. It just means it was a short chapter.
It's
Eric, I applaud you. It was, I know it must have been hard to keep the notes so short.
Thanks. The chapter is really two events that happen, and there are interesting tidbits of information in here and there, which is good. First, Harry does decide to take up Cedric's advice, and he tickles the statue of Boris the Bewildered, or he mentions the incantation. It's this guy, Boris the Bewildered, is this statue at Hogwarts. He looks a little lost, and he has his gloves on the wrong hands. So, I thought that was funny. And Harry gains access to the prefect's bathroom. His immediate reaction is that it would be worth becoming a Hogwarts school prefect just to be able to use this bathroom. And the reason is, it's this large, I want to say swimming pool. It's this large rectangle, the size of a swimming pool, and there are about 100 taps, each with a different color of jewel-encrusted faucets, basically. What did you guys think of this bathroom?
I know. I mean, as far as bathrooms go, it sounds pretty cool.
Let's not dwell on topic bathrooms.
All right. I guess that was an inappropriate question. I can't trust you guys to be mature about this. All right. So anyway, Harry, the instructions are to take the egg into the bathroom, which Harry does, and Harry opens the egg, and still nothing happens. So he decides to go for a swim. Soon enough, he meets Moaning Myrtle, who, it is revealed, happens to spy on people in the prefect's bathroom. I guess prefects are hot or something. But Moaning Myrtle is spying on Harry. Harry feels pretty violated. But she reveals a few things. She actually hints to him that he needs to put the egg under the water. in order to hear the clue, which Harry does. But in the meantime, that gets him thinking, well, what sort of, creature can I only hear underwater? A few minutes later, he realizes, mer people. So Harry's theory is that mer people will somehow play a role in the second task. But he asks Myrtle if there are mer people in the lake, and she says yes, she sometimes runs into them when she's not expecting it and somebody flushes the toilet that she lives in. So I guess this means that the toilets of Hogwarts dump into the lake.
Seems pretty normal. No, I mean,
well, really?
Well, where do you think all ours goes? I mean,
well,
that big blue thing in between us and England.
This is a very gross chapter.
Well, for you, it goes between, you and Hawaii out there.
It goes through. I assume there are processing facilities.
Yeah, of course. There's septic tanks and waste management facilities.
This is a crappy chapter. Anyway, the other thing about Myrtle that we learn, which is kind of cool, is that she's talking about Harry. She tries to guilt Harry for not visiting her, and she remembers the story of Olive Hornby discovering her body. So Olive Hornby, if you remember from Chamber of Secrets, was the girl who was always teasing Moaning Myrtle about her glasses. It turns out that Olive was the one who actually went to find Myrtle. One of the teachers sent Olive Hornby to go find Myrtle, and Olive entered the bathroom on the second floor and asked, Myrtle, are you still in here crying? And at that point, I guess the ghost of Moaning Myrtle decided that she was going to haunt Olive Hornby, and even made an appearance at Olive Hornby's brother's wedding. Moaning Myrtle is recounting this story to Harry, who doesn't really care. And she gets cut off, though. She cuts herself off and says, but then Olive Hornby went to the Ministry of Magic, and that they made me come back to Hogwarts and dwell in my toilet. So apparently, the Ministry of Magic has some kind of power over ghosts, over this realm of the almost unseen, because somehow they were able to force Moaning Myrtle to stop haunting, or stalking, as Moaning Myrtle says, Olive Hornby. What do you guys think, and what kind of power do they have over ghosts?
Clearly a lot. I mean, I don't know. It just seems... this is a situation, though, where a ghost is clearly harassing somebody. Haunting them.
What are you going to do? Slap them on the wrist?
Do.
Won't it go right through them?
But, yeah, exactly. But the point is, they obviously have a means of being able to control them in some cases. Obviously, with the case of Peeves, he's a poltergeist, so it's a little bit different. How different, I don't know. But, yeah, Myrtle is just a ghost that is obnoxious, and, are you forced, though? I mean, I guess not. When just looking at the house ghost, you're not forced to necessarily be in the place where you're killed. You're able to be mobile, and that's proven by the fact that she does go to the wedding. But I would think, though, for the majority of their afterlife, they would have to spend it in a place where, they're not necessarily bothering a whole lot of people. I don't know.
So you're saying the fact that they shoot her back to the toilet is actually cruel and unusual punishment?
In a way, yeah, I think so, because, she's forced to live here now. Some ministry decree has been passed saying you must stay here. I mean, what if she just wants to go off of Hogwarts grounds? She can't do that
So
anymore.
Now she's always reliving, in a sense, the moment of her death. I
think they know their placement, too. Like, they know the limits, and I think they all sort of respect Dumbledore in some capacity, so in that regard they stay within reason in terms of behavior.
Well, do you think that the ministry, do you think that the power that the ministry has over ghosts comes from their studying of the Veil and the afterlife, like from the Department of Mysteries?
Possibly. I mean, I don't think, though, if Myrtle wanted to go back and haunt Olive Hornby for the rest of her life, what's preventing her from doing that? What is the ministry, like you said before, actually going to do? I mean, they probably asked her nicely to go back to Hogwarts.
Well, how
do you impose that restriction? I mean, the ghost can, it's not going to be impacted by any spell that's cast at it.
That's the real question, though. What magic? Because she gives the impression that they forced her to go back to Hogwarts. It's not just they ask nicely, what reasons does a ghost have for listening to a ministry that ministers to the living? They're dead. It doesn't matter. But obviously, Olive Hornby was still alive, and Myrtle just wanted to haunt her, and it's obviously ill will. So apparently somewhere there's a definition of what ghosts' purpose is in their afterlife. If they've chosen to walk the earth, apparently there's rules still that they can't break. So I thought that was very interesting. So that's the first part of this chapter. The second part is what happens after Harry leaves the bathroom. He's about to go back to the Gryffindor dormitory, and he's under the cloak, carrying the egg in one hand and the Marauders map in the other. And he notices something on the Marauders map, a person pacing around in Snape's office that is not Snape. In fact, it is Bartemius Crouch, is what the Marauders map. Now, in the previous chapter, as Andrew said, Barty Crouch is supposed to be sick and missing in action, as it were, from his duties at the Ministry. Why, Harry wonders, would he be in Hogwarts, especially at this late hour? Obviously, not invited, not welcome into Snape's office, which he's pacing. So Harry cannot resist the urge to investigate. Unfortunately, his leg gets caught in one of the staircases, in one of the trick stairs, and all hell breaks loose. He drops the egg, which wails, and he drops the map as well. So he's there with his foot stuck in a step. He's under the invisibility cloak, but both the map and the egg are out of his control. And soon, Filch shows up. But that's not enough. Soon after that, Snape shows up. And once they're talking about a student being out of bed, Snape, of course, suspecting Potter, Mad-Eye Moody shows up and says, "What is this, a pajama party?" And it's just this gradual increase in suspense, because Harry we're forced to read Harry on the steps, not being able to move. And it's I drew the parallel between this and the end of book 6, when Harry can't move and he's sort of invisible and can't, react to anything. But he's in a lot of danger right here. And I didn't know if you guys had anything specific you wanted to bring up, but I just thought that this was very interesting how the suspense gradually lifts, and then only at the very end of the chapter does it really release.
Well, this scene doesn't even take place in the movie, right?
Right.
No.
Well, it's not uncommon, though, for Snape to suspect Harry. I mean, there's a champion's egg that's lying out here, and sure, you could put it on Peeves, but there's a good chance that it's Harry, because, the other two champions that are not from the school aren't in Hogwarts to begin with. Cedric is probably not somebody who's going to be out roaming the corridors in the middle of the night. So, and once Snape sees the Marauders map, I mean, that's a clear indication to him, after what happened in Prisoner of Azkaban, that it's Harry.
Yeah.
So
Snape did have that bad experience.
Yeah, why didn't he, do some sort of spell or curse or something?
I think he was about to
reveal Harry's presence. I know, until Mad-Eye Moody shows up.
And Mad-Eye says to him, "I think Dumbledore would be concerned that you're always trying to harm Mr. Potter," or something to, words to that effect, where Moody can see Harry, and that's the first thing Harry realizes, is because Moody's eye goes straight to him, and his mouth kind of gapes open a little bit before he first speaks. But, the interesting thing is that Moody actually helps Harry out of the situation, but when Snape is inches from Harry, and Harry's worried that he just took a bath, so he smells nice, I think, that's what he's worried about, that Mrs. Norris, because I think it's even confirmed in the beginning of the scene. Harry's wondering again if Mrs. Norris can see through the cloak, but by the end of the scene, he's realized that she just detects the smell of him, that there's this perfumey pink bubble bath that Harry's just been taking is now working against him. So the moral of the story is don't take baths.
Right. But if you smell like you know what, you can also have a stench emanating from you as well.
That's
just
true.
Look at Snape.
But
this is an interesting part, though, because of he shows up on the Marauders map, and I thought that should have been a huge clue to Harry, especially after what happened in the last book, where there are people showing up on the map that aren't supposed to be there. And the fact that, in the last book you were dealing with Animagus, but in this book you're dealing with somebody who's using Polyjuice Potion. I'm just surprised that Harry wasn't more apt to think, and then later on in the next chapter, Hermione or Ron, that maybe it's somebody who is just not who they appear to be.
Well, I guess that is the excuse, is that maybe Harry's not aware of this long-term transformation type of magic where, Barty Crouch could pose as Mad-Eye for so long.
Additionally, though, he thinks it's Barty Crouch Sr. And the trick here is that the Marauders map, obviously a senior and a junior share the exact same name, or for exact first and last name. So Bartemius Crouch, Harry doesn't have enough information to piece this together because he doesn't, as far as I'm aware, he doesn't know about Barty Crouch Jr.'s existence. I think Snape, or Sirius at one point, did say about Barty Crouch he threw his own son in Azkaban, but I don't think that scene has happened yet where he really tells the story. I think that happens in the cave. And, that's after Harry suspects Barty Crouch Sr. is at the works. And Moody, aka Barty Crouch Jr., says to Harry, pretending to be Moody, that, you think I'm bad at wanting dark wizards beyond bars. Barty Crouch Sr. is worse. So Harry, it's very interesting that, Harry and Moody have this exchange, and, if there's nothing else, I'll end the chapter, but, I just thought that this scene was interesting, but it's really the only thing that happens in this chapter.
Yeah. Well, just the last point that you have there, I think it's interesting that Barty Crouch Jr. is suggesting that Harry become an Auror.
Yeah. And that's the real irony, almost. And I think it's revisited in book 6, I believe, where Harry's like, oh yeah, that guy was a criminal. That's kind of weird. But, it's one of those interesting things about Barty Crouch Jr.'s character that, he would suggest to Harry. The other important thing happened is that Moody has the map. And this is actually a plot hole in the books. It's a book mistake that Moody never gives Harry's map back to him. And in book 5, there's a scene where Harry pulls out the map. Just randomly, like he already had it on his person, but it's never written how Harry gets that map back. So that's interesting. But that was really all I had for this chapter.
Next chapter, chapter 26, the second task. As I mentioned before, I've done the first task, the unexpected task, and now the second task.
Yeah, Micah dibs. Here's more behind the scenes. Micah's like, hey guys, I'm dibbing the third task. The third task. He's like, I got dibs.
All right.
I did all these other stupid tasks.
So, as I mentioned earlier, Harry and Ron and Hermione are discussing this confrontation that happened the previous night between Snape and Mad-Eye Moody. And Ron seems really interested in Snape's second chance that was mentioned during their conversation. And, of course, we later learn that Snape is being given a second chance because he was, in fact, a Death Eater. But Hermione seems more concerned in why an ill Barty Crouch Sr. was nosing around at Hogwarts. And it's interesting that that's exactly what Harry was thinking. So Harry and Hermione are of the same thought, as opposed to Ron, who's kind of focusing in on Snape. And it's interesting that Hermione is the one who uses Lupin and Hagrid as a defense to Ron's argument about, Snape getting the second chance. But she's right. I mean, Hogwarts is kind of the island of misfit toys in terms of professors. You have Lupin, who's a werewolf. You have Hagrid, who's a half-giant. And, who was accused of opening the Chamber of Secrets. So Dumbledore is very much in favor of giving people second chances.
Yeah, Micah
yeah,
just...
and he's...
Yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
I think he's always sort of preached the whole acceptance of everyone sort of angle, which, of course, is always an overarching theme in the Harry Potter books.
Micah just made a Christmas reference.
Yes.
That was cool.
The island of misfit toys.
Yeah,
yes.
But you're right, and I think Snape's second chance is... In that scene, Snape grabs for his arm when Moody, so it's almost very obvious if you knew what you were looking for Harry, the mystery would be solved. But Hermione's right, I think, to be more concerned about Barty Crouch nosing around, because to think about it, if his presence isn't known, he's pretty much like Sirius Black being in the castle when he doesn't belong. You can't just apparate in and out of Hogwarts, so it's almost like how do you appear and disappear so quickly is probably a really big concern.
Yeah, definitely. So Hagrid does return to teaching classes, and based upon what I read, he actually gives a pretty good lesson where people are learning about the creatures that he's showing them, the unicorn still, and he seemed to be pretty knowledgeable for the first time, I think, in quite a while, and doesn't have a bunch of blast-ended scroots running around blowing themselves and students up. So
I think this is a refreshed Hagrid who sort of has a new outlook, or like a cleansed outlook on.
He did his homework the night before and was ready to teach class. So again, there's this interaction between Hagrid and Harry. Hagrid's asking him how he's coming along in terms of the second task, but now he faces the issue of trying to figure out how he's going to survive for a period of an hour underneath the lake. So and we talked a little bit about this before in terms of Harry feeling bad about lying to Hagrid. You guys seem to think he was more of a parental figure, so that was one of the questions that I had. Was he more of a parental figure or more of like kind of a big brother? Because just based on how mature Hagrid comes across, to me he seems more of kind of the big brother. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I would call it fatherly just because Hagrid's always very proud of Harry. And I think you see fatherly characteristics in that over big brotherly. So
yeah,
I would say fatherly, and just the difference in the connection, the relationship connection. Hagrid having worked with his parents in the past. I would call it fatherly.
Yeah, and I mean he does get drunk, and the trio has to like dip him in a tub of cold water, and it's kind of, I don't know, I guess you do that for your brother too, but I think there's just such an age difference that Hagrid, as Andrew said, traipsed around with Harry's parents, but also the trio wasn't even of drinking age at that time, and here they are taking care of Hagrid, who's mothering a dragon, that sort of thing. So I do think it's more fatherly.
So he's like a drunk uncle. Is that what you're saying?
Like a drunk uncle. If drunk uncle were an option, I think drunk uncle would be Hagrid completely.
Okay. So as I mentioned, what's happening is they're trying to help Harry figure out how in the world he's going to be able to compete in this task underwater. And they're searching the library for hours and hours and hours on end. They get McGonagall's permission to go into the restriction section. And why is this such a hard task to crack? Thinking about breathing underwater, I mean, there's a couple options that come up, but Harry's not advanced enough in terms of being able to perform certain charms, transfiguration, things like that. But there has to be a simple solution to this. Was it just a matter of them working too hard, you guys think? Were they overlooking maybe an easy solution to this?
Yeah.
Well, why would there be a spell or a charm to breathe underwater? Like, where would it be useful? I feel like the wizards in the wizarding world aren't like muggles where, we have deep sea divers and people who are really interested in how the earth formed, and they'll need a solution to go down underwater to the depths of the earth. But like wizard kind, they almost, we only see spells and charms that have practical uses for sort of their nomadism. It's not exactly like, they're never rooted down, so there really wouldn't need to be a reason to breathe underwater almost for a wizard. Because it's not...
Well, clearly there are people that live at the bottom of the lake. I'm sure they live in other underwater places around the wizarding world too, so you would think that, Dumbledore apparently converses with the mer people on quite a regular basis, so...
So you're thinking as a sort of magical creatures getting to know, other races of creatures that would have a use for people learning Mermish. Dumbledore knows Mermish. Why does he know Mermish? I don't know. But that would be a reason to have a device that allows you to breathe underwater?
Same thing with, say there's plants, herbology, being the study of them, you have to go underwater to get some of these things. How do you achieve that?
Well, I think just all the answers part of it has to do with Harry being 14 and not 17. So you're saying, like, what Crumb does, transfigures his head into a shark, is obviously a little bit more advanced for Harry. But also, like, all the solutions, even gillyweed, is pretty rare. It's uncommon. The only reasons gillyweed is available is because Snape had it, in his potions, and trusts Snape to have those really obscure, weeds. But I think that it is kind of a hard question. It's kind of a hard task. There only are obscure charms to do it. There's no real one quick, this will help you breathe underwater.
Uh-huh.
So that presented
No, that's a good point. But as you mentioned, Harry does use gillyweed, which is given to him by Dobby, and clear book movie difference here, because it's Neville in the movie who ends up giving it to him.
I think in both the book and the movie, it was stolen from Snape's stores, right?
Yeah, Dobby steals it from Snape's storage, and so again, I think it's just a matter of them not wanting to put house elves on the screen and have to pay
Save
for
some
them.
money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Dobby also lets Harry know about his Wheezy, which Harry learns is Ron, who's been taken from him. And now, did Harry know that it was Ron in the movie prior to going into the lake? Did they announce it right before they went underwater?
No, I don't think. No, in the movie, I think you see Harry really shocked once he's in the water that he sees, Ron and then Hermione.
Right. So the second task begins, and Harry's getting mocked by the crowd when he's waiting for the gillyweed to take effect. He's not actually sure what's going to happen. I mean, Dobby, who has presented clear danger to him in the past, trying to save his life, has just given him this weed that he's supposed to eat, and who knows what's going to happen. But he does turn into.
Don't say weed. Say gillyweed.
Oh, sorry.
It sounds inappropriate.
Anyway, he takes this gillyweed, and he, for all intents and purposes, he turns into this human fish, and he goes underwater. And who does he run into but Moaning Myrtle at one point? So she makes another cameo.
Somebody must have flushed her accidentally, Dad.
Must have, yeah. Why, again, was she not included in the movie? We have Dobby not being included. Now,
well,
she's not included in this particular scene. Again, just a matter of staying true to the books. I know we can have that argument all day long, but would have been interesting because she points him in the right direction of where he's supposed to go. So, he's getting this assistance, again, in the task. So Harry follows what Moaning Myrtle tells him to do, and I think it's in the book 20 minutes later he arrives at what I call Merpeople Square, sort of this little town under the water, and Harry sees Ron tied up, and he remembers Sirius's knife, and I noted this is not the first time he has forgotten to use something Sirius gives him, or it actually is the first time that he forgets to use something Sirius gives him. Later on, we find out that he's pretty prone to not using things that Sirius provides him with. The mirror being, of course, what I'm talking about.
Yeah, does he just not give Sirius the credit he deserves? What's up with that?
Well, I think he doesn't plan well. I mean, that's the thing. He's very impulsive. He's got that sort of saving people complex that Hermione refers to later after they get out of the lake. And, if he would have thought about this task, he seems to be not focused in a way. And, but again, who knows why you would you really think to bring a knife underwater with you? I probably wouldn't.
I mean, if you had, I guess not.
If you had more of an idea as to what would be going on, then maybe, you would. Because you see when Crumb gets there to rescue Hermione, Harry helps him out with a rock, to free her. So none of them were prepared. Now comes the big question, though. Why doesn't he just take Ron and leave? This is a competition after all. And, do you think the age discrepancy plays a role here? Is he a little bit too immature? Because later on we see Ron and Hermione tell him, well, you didn't really think that Dumbledore was going to let us all die down there, did you? What do you think plays into it here?
Well, what's at stake? That's the question. What is at stake? I mean, the riddle from the egg, and I'll read just the last 2 lines, says, "But past an hour, the prospect's black. Too late, it's gone, it won't come back." Like, that sounds to me like they're gonna kill some students. Like, really, it does. And the movie doesn't really make that clearer, because, Harry obviously tries to save everybody, and the mer people don't like that, but it really seems like they were gonna drown these people, these students, and I don't think I ever understood that in this chapter.
But I mean, see, I don't know if I agree with that, because Cedric comes, he takes Cho. Crumb comes, he takes Hermione without a second thought, and I think they're more mature in terms of age, and they realize, well, this is a competition. And that, I don't really need to be bothered with anybody else, because in the end of the day, past an hour, chances are anybody who hasn't made it there, they're going to free whomever is captive down here. I mean,
so I think you're saying Harry's kind of naive to think that.
Yeah, I think he is, and I think he's not focusing on what the competition is about, and that's getting out of the water first.
Well, is the competition about that? Because Harry gets awarded these special points for being a hero.
Well, we can talk about that too. We can talk about, does he really deserve those points?
Well, why would Dumbledore give them if there wasn't some kind of... It's like almost a pat on the back. Like, nice try, Harry. You didn't really get the point of the competition, but because you're a hero and we all love you. Like, that's what Harry...
Right, like, here's some extra credit,
Well, that's the thing. So Harry, I guess, became confused over the nature of the competition. He believes, and I don't think he's wrong in doing so, that this is the Triwizard Tournament. This is the tournament that people die in. Like, historically, that's happened. And so he really feels as though Fleur will not get her sister back. It's in Harry's character to make this sort of move. So,
well,
I think...
Yeah, you're right, but... part of it, I think, Eric, you said the word before, is he's a bit naive. He's a bit immature when it comes to realizing what's going on. And that saving hero complex is kind of clouding his decision making, much like it does in Order of the Phoenix when, he mistakenly goes to try and rescue Sirius when he's not really in trouble.
Well, to be fair, he did go and use the fireplace to make sure that Sirius wasn't there, in Book 5. But I think, Dumbledore has to chat with the mer people, to get the full picture. And the mer people tell Dumbledore of Harry's heroism. But it's just weird, because I don't think it's ever clarified that they were actually not in danger. That the people who were taken were not gonna die. I mean, it just seems so plausible, I think, to Harry that if he doesn't rescue these characters, they will die.
Well, just a couple more quick points in this chapter. What does it say about these mer people that they clearly fear magic? When Harry takes out his wand, they back off immediately. What do you think has happened over the years to make them react in such a way?
That's a really good question.
Could they... I mean, one theory that kind of doesn't take that into consideration is, were they told by the organizers to act this way, to be on the attack? I mean, obviously with the dragons, they're being protective of their egg. That makes sense. But what about the mer people could upset them other than, just being told to be this way? Or maybe they just don't like wizards in their habitat. But then why agree to this is the other thing. Like, why agree to be... Well, yeah, they must have. I mean, mustn't they have? They've tied up these, what we took is in the poem. I think it took tremendous cooperation between Dumbledore and the Burr people to set this whole thing up, especially because they're like, we're gonna have strangers swimming through your territory. Like, that's a pretty big deal. But if you don't tell them, then wouldn't that be a reason for being pissed? Yeah, it would, I guess. But
they're not really pissed. They're fearful. I mean, when Harry, basically threatens them with the wand, they all scatter away.
Well, one of the interesting things was when Harry's losing his gills and he still speaks and they can understand him, but he can't understand them above water, you know? Like he can somehow communicate underwater. They're just like these different creatures. And I think we know that the Ministry of Magic has prevented all non-humans from wielding a wand, even if they have inherent magic. Like house elves have powerful magic, but they're not allowed, and goblins have magic, but they're not allowed, and this is an issue of contention for goblins, to use a wand, so to direct their magic. So I think merpeople have long been denied a wand, even if, say they have magic that they can do. I think they're very fearful, because because of the power that a wizard would have over them. They're not able to conduct their magic in such a way. They would naturally be very fearful of Harry.
Well, it's possible also they've been threatened in some way in the past by a wizard or a witch of some kind, and this is how they react. And then I had a question about, do you think more time is focused on figuring out the task as opposed to the task itself? Or is figuring it out part of the task? Because to me, this seems like a really straightforward task to handle. You go underwater, you swim to this place, you rescue the person, and you're out. There's no big obstacle. I think the biggest obstacle was figuring out how you were going to swim underwater.
Yeah, but that's actually, isn't that said straight out in the book at some point, that really the real task is like figuring out what you're going to do about the task? Discerning, the whole point of the clue is to figure out what the task is, and once you open the egg and learn how to do it, they tell you what the task is. So from that point on, it's prep. It's all prep. Just like, but I'm saying it's the same with the first task. You have to get an egg out from under a dragon. That's pretty straightforward, right? I mean, you just have to figure out what you're going to do about the dragon.
And then Harry gets out of the lake with both Ron and Fleur's sister. They're up on the shore, and Crumb notices that there is a water beetle lodged in Hermione's hair, which ends up being an important plot point later on in the series. And, of course, we mentioned earlier, there's the scores that are discussed amongst the judges, and Harry ends up getting extra points for moral fiber, even though he ended up showing up outside the time limit, because Harry was, of course, the first one to get there, but he waited until all four of the, I call them hostages for lack of a better term, were rescued.
Hostages? Well, that's my point, is that he was over time, and nobody was there to rescue Fleur's sister. Like, at that point, he was past time, and nobody was there. So, going with the riddle, past an hour, too late, it's gone, goodbye, that's a pretty big deal. Like, nobody was standing by to make sure that if the champions didn't make it. And more to the point, when Fleur failed to collect her sister wasn't miraculously released by the merpeople.
Well, yeah, so that is true. The time had expired, but I guess they were waiting for Harry to emerge from the water. And I mean, we could have a conversation, as we did earlier, about did Harry actually deserve the extra points, because in the rules of the competition, he didn't make it back in time, regardless of whether he was the first there or he cared about everybody else. I mean, I think he kind of got a little bonus where it wasn't necessary. But he ends up being in a tie with Cedric for first. We learn, of course, that the next task will take place at sundown on June the 24th, and they will learn about what the task will be a month beforehand. But Harry is just excited that the second task is out of the way, and he mentions that if next time he is in Hogsmeade, he is going to buy Dobby a pair of socks for every day of the year, because of what Dobby was able to do for him. So that's where Chapter 26 ends.
Okay. Well, moving on now to our Twitter question of the week. It's getting back to some news we talked about at the top of the show. What are your thoughts on the DVD and Blu-ray release of Deathly Hallows Part 1? Dodgeroo 54 wrote, I know that Blu-ray will eventually become the norm, but for those of us who don't have Blu-ray yet, give us all the extras on the DVD.
I agree with that.
Well, just buy that 3-pack and you get the DVD. It's only a couple extra dollars more. Brianna Selesky says, I'm excited as always for more footage, but disappointed that some scenes, such as the scene with Crumb, are missing. That's a good point. I mean, they brought in Crumb for filming. Why not put him on the deleted scenes at least?
That's another example of a scene that I saw that was not deleted scene.
Gracie wrote, I think the deleted scenes look awesome, but I don't mind that they were left out. Elisa Marie Parsons wrote, it's exciting, but I hate being basically forced to buy the combo pack. Whatever happened to special 2-disc DVDs? Lol.
Oh, they are a thing in the past. We should play music for the long lost 2-disc DVD, right?
It's changing times.
We're gonna have some music to play coming up, Eric. You better get it ready.
Oh, who dies?
Barty Crouch Sr.
Megan Smith wrote, would you rather see commentary or bloopers on the DVDs? If you pick commentary, who would you want to hear from other than JKR? See, if everybody remembers, there was a commentary with Half-Blood Prince exclusively for people who have Blu-ray players. It was a live commentary. So it was really cool. Everybody got to watch the Blu-ray as David Barron and Dan Radcliffe spoke. But the problem with it was they weren't really talking about what was going on as we all were watching. They were mainly talking about like different questions that people had sent in. So they should do another one of those, but there hasn't been any announcements yet, so we'll see. Abby Cream wrote, the Harry and Dudley scene, because I love how as much they seem to hate each other, they end on good terms. Tear. That was a weird sentence, but...
It's Twitter. What do you expect? Come on, 140 characters.
Abigail Kurnosky wrote, I was hoping the deleted scenes would include the ones that were supposed to be something out of Saw. And Holst wrote, sure hope they cut those deleted scenes due to time and not because they were bad. Mike Fitzgerald wrote, I get that WB wants people to buy the Blu-ray, but putting next to no special features on the DVD is ridiculous.
I agree.
And finally, Evelyn V. Charles wrote, I'm excited to see the Dudley and Petunia scenes and wonder why they would take them out of the movie. The pacing, it just messed up the pacing. Okay, let's move on to Muggle Mail now. Micah, can you read the first one?
Yeah, first email from Erin32 of Washington State, and she says, hey guys, I just listened to episode 219, and I had a little feedback. First, you asked if the Yule Ball was only meant for 6th or 7th year kids, or if it was only extended because Harry was in the tournament. Dress robes were on Harry and Ron's list of required things for the year to have. Mrs. Weasley says the dress robes were on their list, but not why they were needed. Also, you did a good job with the chapter when Harry and Ron are trying to get dates to the dance. I think Hermione in the Yule Ball chapter was really happy with her body image as well as her good luck at snagging Victor Crumb. I think that once she started getting to know him, she could see a bit better why all the other girls were infatuated with him. Anyway, that was my interpretation. Thanks for reading. Love from Erin. So, there you go. Because remember last episode I asked if the age of the Yule Ball was extended just because Harry had ended up being selected in the tournament, but clear plot point that Erin brings up that, of course, they had to have dress robes, so they would have been allowed.
Eric, can you read the next email?
This one comes from Caroline, age 17, of Clemson, South Carolina. I know a few people in Clemson. Hey, MuggleCasters, I was just listening to episode 219, and during the chapter-by-chapter, you guys said that you were surprised that Hermione was so affected by Malfoy's teasing that she shortened the length of her teeth. Hermione's a very strong character, but the fact of the matter is that she's a 14-year-old girl, and teenage girls are very self-conscious about their body image. No girl wants to be teased about the way they look, especially during the, quote, awkward teenage years. End quote. Maybe if this had happened later in Hermione's life, she would have just brushed it off and left her teeth the way they are. Thanks, love the show, Caroline.
Okay. Now, I think she brings up a good point. It's still a developing child, so it's understandable. Next email comes from Luel, 17 of the Netherlands. I'm fairly new to MuggleCast, only up until 2 days ago I started listening to it. I've been busy with downloading the earlier episodes and I really enjoy them. You're all great. However, you were talking about in which way Snape's death would be changed for something more dramatic and more fit for the theater. And one of you mentioned that it was also likely that when Harry gets the memories from Severus, he would not go all the way up to Dumbledore's office to view it in the Pensieve. Since there would be a war going on, it wouldn't make sense. I agree with you. That would be totally insane. But then I started thinking and started to doubt if this was really how the scene went in the book. So I looked it up, and there it is. After Snape's death, the new chapter starts, and as the trio makes their way back to the castle, Voldemort's voice is once again heard in the Hogwarts grounds. He then speaks directly to Harry and tells him his friends and students have got time to tend to the wounded, and that he expects Harry in exactly 1 hour in the Forbidden Forest. So Harry has got plenty of time to view Snape's memories. I would love to see this very scene in the movie, though. It's one of the most surprising chapters. Let's see what WB is going to make of it.
Okay, so that was my mistake, but so Harry uses that time that Voldemort says he got to go and do a history lesson. It still felt out of place to me, but I was wrong. It's not while people are dying. I don't get that. He's just like, so because the enemies are loyal to Voldemort, they just stop attacking, and the students attacking just because Voldemort says that they should? Like, really?
Well, how they script it in the movie, though, could be completely different, though. Just because that's how it is in the book doesn't mean that's how they're going to take it and translate it into the film.
So many loved ones are dying, like Lupin and Tonks. Say one of them died first, the other one would, and then just as you're about to fight back and avenge your loved one, Voldemort says, "Okay, we're going to stop now. Harry Potter, you have an hour. Meet me in the woods." I don't know, but yeah, I was wrong. I'm sorry, Luell. I'll take the next one. This one comes from Sean, 23, of San Jose, California. In response to the blink and you'll miss it roll scene, I think he meant the way the movie Mission Impossible meant it way back in the day. The movie's tagline was something along the lines of, quote, "If you blink, you will miss the whole movie," end quote. So what I think he meant is that there's going to be a lot of information spilling out all at once, and then if you don't pay close attention, you will miss parts of what he's saying. The HP movies tend to do this, have very fast dialogue. One of my biggest complaints from the movies, aka Shrieking Shack scene in Harry Potter 3, Sean. So we're still talking about the actor. We're still talking about the actor who was cast as Aberforth Dumbledore, who described the role as Blinking Hines. Kieran Hines. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Last email.
But I think that was valuable feedback.
All right.
Go ahead, Micah.
Last email comes from Anon. I think short for Anonymous, 25 of Seattle, Washington, and this is about strange places. People listen to MuggleCast. Hey guys, sorry I'm late with my submission, but I just finished listening to episode 219, the outtakes, where you mentioned that it would be cool if someone from Apple listened to MuggleCast. While I can't say that I work at Apple building iPhones, I can do something similar. I work at Microsoft and I listen to MuggleCast while coding, or like today, while I'm at a meeting. Sometimes the meetings drag on. I tend to put my headphones on, a hoodie on, and listen to MuggleCast from the back of a 60-people conference. Other times I'm writing code for an operating system software that you guys probably use, sorry, not allowed to say details, while listening to you make jokes. So next time you use the operating system, just think about that.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
So I'm using what I assume is the operating system, and I'm thinking of Anon right now. Oh, that's why it's anonymous. Oh.
Yes.
Wow.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Unless his name is Anand, which would work perfectly also.
Well, the very fact that somebody wrote in and told us that they exist, like, really, that's my favorite thing ever.
Well, thanks for sending that in, Anon. Finally today, chicken soup for the fellow podcaster soul. This is from Drew Cuthin, 23 of Southern California. Hi, my name is Drew, but everyone knows me as Payne. I've been listening to your show since I was a senior in high school, 2006. I love your show, and it's because of your podcast that gave me the courage to join a podcast. You guys always seem like you have fun, and I wanted to try it out. In 2010, I went to Anime Expo, and I was approached by one of the co-hosts of Kona Corner, a Naruto? Maybe
Naruto, yeah.
Naruto podcast, and she said that there was an opening and that I should try out. After much thought, I gave it a shot. I am one of the I am now one of the co-hosts of Kona Corner. Thank you for giving me the courage and inspiration that I need to join a podcast. I love your show, and I hope you never stop making episodes. Your biggest fan and fellow podcaster, Drew, aka Payne. So thanks, Drew, for that email. We inspired him to get into podcasting. That's really cool. And I know a lot of people have become interested, by hearing MuggleCast and other podcasts as well. So, very good. Before we wrap up the show today, first, Micah, we have a plug for MuggleNet's new essay section. What's this about? Tell me.
So our two of our staffers, Noah and Kyle, have been working on what people might remember as our editorial section. And of course, this was a really popular section back in the day. J.K. Rowling even made mention of it when she gave MuggleNet our Fanside Awards. So what they're doing though now is looking more at the analysis of the series and a lot of themes. Basically, what we do here on MuggleCast and have done for 220 episodes, but they want it in written format, and they've been getting a lot of good submissions over really, I guess, since it's been open. It's been there now for about a couple months or so, I think, and we've officially opened it today, which is February the 5th, and people are already sending stuff in from what I understand. I'm guessing things that they've already had written. And what we're looking for people to do is send in something about the series. It can really be on any topic that you want it to be on, related to analysis of the Harry Potter series or the movies in 2,000 words or less. And what we're going to do on MuggleNet, though, is we're going to take one of these and we're going to feature them every month, one essay that we think is relevant maybe to something that's going on or just stands out among the rest, and put it there right there on the homepage for people to check out. The other thing that we're going to do is have people suggest that people write an essay about the chapter by chapter segment that we're going to be doing on our upcoming episodes. So what we'll do then is we'll take this essay that people are writing. So for example, we'll be discussing chapters 27 to 29 on episode 221. You can write an essay on it, something related to analysis, themes, characters, whatever you want, and we'll take the one essay out of that group and we'll discuss it. We'll analyze it ourselves on that episode. So we're trying to really integrate all the essays that people are writing, because so many people out there are so talented. A lot of the fans that visit the site, can write so well and have great ideas. So it's a really cool section.
And one other plug I've been telling you guys about for the past couple of weeks, Hype, a new podcast that Ben, Shane, and I are doing, hypepodcast.com. Check it out. We're putting out new episode every 2 weeks, just like we do with MuggleCast, and it's been a lot of fun. So visit hypepodcast.com for the info. And by the way, Ben's going to be at LeakyCon too. I don't think I mentioned that when we were talking at the beginning, but he will be there.
That's reason enough to go. You should have just said that instead of giving all those other reasons. Ben Shane's going to be there. Also, Wizard Rock lovers, there's a new website where you can listen to 24 hours a day to Wizard Rock, and it's called Rockbox. That's WROCKBOX.com. It's a live radio. You can transport it to your iPhone and other mobile devices, and it's 24 hours of Wizard Rock and other Harry Potter related segments. Look for MuggleCast to show up on Rockbox very shortly, but already you can get timed segments featuring different hosts of different things and all the Wizard Rock you could possibly shake a stick at. It's rockbox.com.
All right, thanks everyone for listening. I'm Andrew Sims.
I'm Eric Skull.
And I'm Mike Atanapel.
We'll see you next time for episode 221. Peace out. Bye-bye.
Bye.
What was that, Arnold? Bye.